Welcome to Closer to Venus. I'm Johnny Burke. Today's guest is Karl de Leeuw. He is a researcher and author of The Universe Code. And if you've ever had questions about reincarnation in the five main religions, that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Karl, welcome to the program.
Hi, Johnny. Thank you for having me.
So tell me, you've done quite a bit of research in this area. You've authored several books and articles. What got you started in this field?
I was in Dublin, Ireland, a wife, 3 kids, and I was first an accountant in the building industry called a quantity surveyor in the Commonwealth countries. And then I moved into property investment. In 2008, 2007 actually, August 2007, you had the worldwide subprime crisis triggered by American subprime mortgages. To cut a long story short, through one property, my whole property portfolio fell. The property prices in Dublin went down the 3 years after subprime by up to 80% in the luxury areas, between 50 and 80, and mine's 80. And then what one property pulled everything under. So I couldn't invest anymore, and I had to start thinking. So I researched the mind. It ended up, as you say, I wrote 3 books. This book took me 7 years of research and writing it up. And here we are today.
Okay, so reincarnation, when we discuss that amongst us civilians who didn't really do all the work, one of the first questions that always seems to come up, why is it that most world religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, to name a few, openly embrace reincarnation while Christianity and Muslim, at least in the modern day, do not? Why do you suppose that is?
I think it's because it was taken out by scholars for power purposes out of Judaism, Christianity, out of the Old and New Testament. It's interesting that it's not seen to be in Islam, but you can just Google Quran and reincarnation and it's there. Mm-hmm. So, this is a very interesting point, a question you asked me. I believe it's scholars. Now, I have some documents that points to it being, reincarnation being in the Old and New Testament. In Judaism, the only document I can find that's full of reincarnation is the Zohar. So the Zohar was communicated to Shimon bar Yochai, sort of 100, 200 years after Christ. He was in a cave for 13 years. And it's amazing, just out of interest sake, you've got to go to Kabbalah.com. If you can be from any background, if you want really the secrets of the universe, it's £15 a month, say $25 a month, and you can see videos. It's amazing stuff. But in any case, Kabbalah.com, the Zohar, is all about reincarnation. So in the Jews community, you've obviously got normal Jews and you've got then the orthodox Jews, very conservative. But on the other side, you've got the Kabbalists. And the Kabbalists kept all their secrets from the world. They're now starting to open up. Kabbalah.com, one of the Kabbalah groups, is now starting to open it up. So that's under Christianity. Under Judaism, under Christianity, there's the Talmud of Gamaliel. So the Talmud of Gamaliel was found in 1963, 57 years ago, in a cave in Jerusalem. And the Iranian guy was actually translating it into German. And then the Israelis bombed him and actually killed him. But I know that the Talmud of Gamaliel survived. Well, we've got 30% of it. That document in the future will hopefully be carbon dated to show it is from there. And the Talmud of Gamaliel is all about reincarnation again. It's the real New Testament. It's where before scholars plagiarized it.
Say that once more. Was it the real New Testament or?
It's the correct New Testament.
Correct.
So,
okay.
Yes, it's the document. Scholars of the Talmud of Gamaliel can show how the current New Testament was taken from Talmud of Gamaliel. I forgot to mention under Judaism, Old Testament, documents that can show things being taken out of the Old Testament could be. So in about 720 years before Christ, BCE, the 10 of the 12 tribes of Israel were ejected out of Israel, called the lost tribes. And they went sort of east. So they went to Iraq and then east. And it will be very interesting to see their Bible compared to the current Bibles, to see what, if anything, was removed, because they will have the correct Bible up to 2,700 years ago.
If we had evidence, as you're describing just now, we had the missing notes, the missing chapters, and missing books, and we put it all together, is that a reasonable goal for a scholar, or should I say a team of scholars, to make sense of all this? Or is it maybe a little bit quicker, say more of a shortcut, to look towards newer research, starting with like Edgar Cayce and going forward with research in reincarnation, such as Dr. Eben Stevenson and Bob Tucker and so on, Or do you think there's going to be a movement which is directly related to what you're talking about, finding what really was supposed to be in the New Testament?
Yeah, I think Edgar Cayce, obviously, amazing guy. He went in under hypnosis, and some people will question it. I'm a huge fan of Edgar Cayce. You've got the 5 million religions that we're discussing make up 75% of the world population. And that's why I just went for the 5. Already Hinduism and Buddhism is all about reincarnation. It's really just going to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Islam, you can Google it. It's just that for some reason, Prophet Muhammad never caught on to it, but it's there. You can just Google it. So it's really about Judaism, Christianity. So we have those 2 documents, the Zohar and the Talmud of Gamaliel. They just need to be carbon dated to show from the area they came. But perhaps it could be both Edgar Cayce's plus that. And then we've obviously got a third method, which is people remembering past reincarnations and that side of things. So there's sort of possible 3 different ways to authenticate reincarnation. Reincarnation will never be, it's like love or the creator. We're never going to be able to prove the creator or love.
There's not going to be 3D evidence, in other words. I get that, of course.
Yeah.
There's enough of it. Going back to Edgar Cayce, who was indeed a very, very fascinating man. He was a devout Christian. I believe he read the Bible for literally every year of his life. But at the same time, he really struggled with what he saw in his trance-like states and doing readings for people and telling someone like Karl, you had a life in ancient Egypt, and before that you were in Atlantis, and before that you had a life in a time that predates any recorded history, which was in direct conflict with his Christian views.
Yes, he was a devout Christian. It's a bit like myself. I'm a Christian, born in Pretoria, South Africa, the heart of apartheid. Went to a Dutch Reformed church in a suit, and then you got an hour after church Sunday school.
I grew up in New Jersey, where everyone is Catholic and everyone goes to church, and CCD after gets confirmed. I just assumed everyone did that.
Yeah, so you, me, Edgar Cayce, whoever else is there. Now, the reason why I wrote the book and the reason why I've got this event called Onesouls is in New York, April next year, is I discovered in my research that we need the truth. The truth will set us free. We need to get to the truth. That's the only way we're going to break through. There's not such a big step in Christianity with reincarnation, because the current Christians believe that, it's the spirit, is the afterlife, is everlasting. And reincarnation is the same. You embody in the body, and the spirit is just moving everlasting. I find that, I suppose like Edgar Cayce as well, that you up against people say, am I Christian? Because I'm coming with different views. But, when we were younger, we just pick up a Bible and then you think everything is true. I spent 7 years of my life to find what I believe is the truth. Now, one can dispute that. I certainly believe in reincarnation.
I think there are those of us that have no doubt. I even felt the same way when I was a kid. As we're talking about Edgar Cayce and reincarnation, and which inevitably brings up past lives, karma, and so forth, how do we reconcile our Catholic or Christian, whatever upbringing with what we think is the truth? The evidence of people that have near-death experiences combined with past life readings and past life regression and life between lives readings really brings up a lot of newer evidence, which almost completely destroys some of the things that we hear from our pastor. It makes what we used to hear in church almost like superstition. So how do we do that? Is it even possible?
I believe it's possible. I know your show starts with the butterfly music.
It's the butterfly effect. I have no idea why I named it that, but the vibe matched the show. I didn't want it to be dreary or melancholy. Maybe I named it that way for a good reason.
Absolutely. Everyone starts somewhere with anything. It is just getting the information out. So in my case, I've got Amazon ads that I pay more than what I get in income. Mm-hmm. I've got press articles. I've had 2 press articles on Jesus in India. Perhaps we can talk about that in the future.
That's another thing which will cause some controversy, but if that's what happened, that's what happened. Yeah, we will.
Yeah. Well, we've got to get to the truth. And then my third route is through podcasts like yourself. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I only started now, 1st of January this year. and for the rest of my life, I'm going to talk about it. And you podcasting, and it's the duplication effect. Other people hear about it, they talk to others, and blah blah blah. So it's just believing, and because it's the only way we're going to get to world peace.
Yes, it has a lot to do with what we've been experiencing here in the States in unprecedented divisiveness, division, or whatever you want to call it, which is really taking our culture back a few steps, which is really a shame. And it's a little scary that a lot of people just don't seem to get that. So when you talk about the truth, I'm after the same thing. That's really what it comes down to.
Yep, the truth will set us free. So we've got the scriptures, we've got people like Eddie Casey. Actually, linking to Eddie Casey, I studied at the College of Psychic Studies in London. One of my teachers there, a lady called Amanda Roberts, she's now in Kiwilat in New Zealand, she's retired. But she's the only person that I've met can remember before she incarnated, which is quite amazing. She sat in a committee, and I've heard this through the spirit world, what she said, that she is the one. In my research I came across says exactly what she said to me. You're in a committee, you're obviously not in body form, you're in the soul form, in the spirit world, and then you plan your incarnation. And Earth is actually hell. It's where you have to have your life lessons. So a lot of spirits don't want to incarnate. But to make the universe grow, you have to incarnate. And it's the only way you're going to grow. So she remembers the committee. They might say to you, your incarnation plan is a bit too tough or not. But it's free will. It's up to the soul to decide whether you're going to incarnate or not. Then you're born in the human form. As soon as you open your mouth, there's the baby, you forget your reincarnation plan. So that's why a lot of people struggle because they're always searching for something. There's something that they're looking for, and it's on purpose that you've got to find your reincarnation plan. It took me up to 2007 when I lost everything to get to a point where I had to wake up. And when I woke up, it sort of just spiritually came to me.
What you just described, I believe, is the council. The Council of 12, I've also heard it described as the Council of Elders. That is the life between lives, where you judge yourself and you basically come to the conclusion, if I'm going to evolve, if I'm going to progress spiritually, I have to go back and I plan a life and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it must be the same.
I've heard that many times, which is great. And I'm finally getting to talk to people that have some insight into that. But how do we take that knowledge and present it to people that are not so open-minded? Because when we talk about spirituality and crystals and new age stuff, it carries a kind of like a hokey, weird pseudoscience vibe. How do we get to the point where I can go to dinner with some friends and not watch them giggle and look at each other like, oh, this guy's lost his mind? That's a challenge.
It is a challenge. And
it is.
In doing so, you alienate a lot of people. I've certainly alienated a lot of my previous close friends. But the truth will set you free, and a lot of information is going to start coming out. So we're in the time of Aquarius. So it was the 21st of December last year, the 200 years started. And the stars are aligned. Now, even if we talk about stars aligned, a lot of people say this is completely rubbish. But fortunately, we've got Netflix, Surviving Death. There are 5 or 6 episodes on reincarnation. They show, young kids, they remember being incarnated before. And then they actually prove that this boy, he was in the Second World War. He remembered all the names. Now, that's quite unusual because the chance that you would reincarnate as an American again is very small, because you must probably incarnate as a Hindu or somewhere else in the world.
Or a different world for that matter.
Absolutely. And it actually goes further than that, not only in human form. If you start discussing that, then people think you're really wacky. But
I get it. And some of it is even a stretch for me when you talk to people about the Akashic records, which I really want to get more people with direct experience of the records. You get into some really, really way out there stuff, like Casey did in his book on reincarnation. He mentioned wars with aliens, and it seems so out there. But at the same time, I thought, what if it's true?
The problem is how the spirit will explain it. It's like we're in a fishbowl, and the quantum world, the spirit world, is on the outside. They can actually see us. In the spirit world, everything is in the now. Time was made just for our world, for reincarnation. The Kabbalists explain it, so that if you do something wrong, then that's part of the life lessons process. You need time. It's like we're in a fishbowl. We're that fish. We cannot see the big, vast outside. That's how the spirit explains how it is. But coming back to your thing, we just got to keep on talking about it. We need more Netflix movies. More documentation will be done on
near-death experiences.
Okay, that's another topic. So near-death experiences, also shows that there's afterlife. So yes,
Yep.
you're right, near-death experience, and I know you're big on that topic. Just staying with reincarnation, I was once in Dublin, 10 people, and there was a lady, so it's past life regression. And out of the 10 people, 7 had past life experiences. I was one of the 3. For some reason. And then afterwards, I went to one-on-one for another lady on a past life regression, and they couldn't get me into that mode. But the 7 out of 10, they remember past experiences, and all of them say, once you experience that past life, it's real. It's like a movie. And it's same as near-death experience. So many near-death experiences have experience, and then they get divorced because the partners don't believe them. But there is another big thing, and if I discuss this now, a lot of people are going to say, what the hell are you on? What kind of drug are you on?
You have license to discuss what you think is relevant. So far, everything we've talked about is, so don't worry about it.
There's a spirit entity called Kryon, Kryon. And Kryon, for the last 20, 30 years, been communicating with people, via people, in about 9 locations all around the world. The information I've got is from Lee Carroll in the States. And Kryon explains, and just for interest's sake, in my research, after 7 years, I had 1 million words that I've taken from books, events, traveling, whatever. And then it took me 6 months, not working, but just to take 2/3 out of that out. And it's amazing. I had a lot of research from people and whatever, but it ended up that the spirit world research and Lippidian, and that's another topic for the future, and the Arcunian research, our forefathers, made far more sense. So like I've got 21 chapters. They all speak to each other. It's like a puzzle. So I ended up with what makes sense. And the things the spirit world says makes 10 times more sense than most humans. They are humans. What Kryon says, and it makes 100% sense to me, is that we're not here just by fluke. There's like a template. So you got the Big Bang, then you get fluffy matter, then you get material, water, and then plants and then animals and stuff like that, and then later on humans, evolution. But there's a template that you evolve to. It's not just that everything is let loose. Now, what Kryon says is that a calf on Earth has got a DNA activation of 100%. So when the calf is born, it gets up and goes. That makes total sense. So why does a human baby, not get up and go? The reason is our DNA activation is set at 30%. The reason for that is because we 100,000 years into 1 million years. The reason why we're the only planet that's in an ascended planet mode. We're the most important planet in the universe. And we only 100,000 years into that cycle. And if you gave someone like Trump 100% DNA activation, it will destroy the world.
Oh my. I've gone a whole 2 days without talking about the election, but it's interesting that you brought that up. And also, you mentioned ascension. And just about everyone I've talked to in the past few months, at some point, we'll bring that up and talk about the 3rd density moving into a higher density, like the 4th or the 5th density. I don't know how many there are, but when you say there's new information coming, are you referring to ascension or are you referring to something else?
It's either from communication in the spirit world via entities or people or via our forefathers. But that's another sort of discussion. I just want to mention one point. I don't want to forget about this. One important point that's happening is the indigo kids. It's all kids from 1998 or something like that. They're called indigo kids. Now, their deactivation is like 35%. So on your previous question, what is happening is we're becoming more spiritual. So as we're growing, the younger kids now, I lived in Ireland for 7-8 years. When I first visited Ireland in 1989, compared to it now, it's like 2 chalk and cheese. Then everyone was into the Pope and 1 million people went to go and see the Pope in Phoenix Park in Dublin. Now that won't happen. The youngsters, they question things and they're smart. So we've got on our side getting the truth out are the indigo kids. They're the higher DNA activation.
I think what I was trying to ask previously was new information, meaning what is being downloaded to us from the universe in terms of the ascension and how we move away from the 3rd density, which is what we're in now, to a higher plane, higher ground. I hear that from several people that we are moving towards it. And there are some of us, not me, of course, not that I know of, that are already 4th or 5th density beings, individuals. Does that make sense, or is that a different topic altogether?
Yeah, so I've got a chapter on the dimensions. So there's 7 dimensions. You say we're moving from the 3rd to the 4th dimension. And just so interest sake, in the spirit world, the leader of Earth, is Santanda. And Santanda is Jesus. His real name is Jamaniel. That's moved already through the different dimensions. So yes, I haven't got a lot of information about it, but the information comes from the Pedans, our forefathers. We're moving through the dimensions, and that must be linked to the DNA activation. Because it's one of the Kabbalistic secrets is we've got to earn things, and you've got to earn it yourself. So as we're earning things and time goes on and you've got more and more life lessons, we grow. And then you move from dimension to dimension. But it's going to take us a lot of time still to get to the seventh dimension, because Jesus was a very high old soul. So, and then you've got young souls and old souls. So, you've got certain souls that only starting their life lessons, and you've got really old souls. So it's like in a family, like a mother will have two kids, and the one is old soul and the one is a young soul. The parents know it. And
very good point.
Yeah, the other thing about that is you get someone that's at 5 and can nearly compose music. Where does that come from? It comes from a past life.
It would have to. How else would they know that? Dr. Ian Stevenson, who was a pioneer in reincarnation research, where he did work with young kids, they were like 8 years old and younger, where they would remember past lives. And I think he went as far as to corroborate the evidence, which is really kind of hard to argue with. And a doctor that I interviewed recently, Dr. Bruce Kowalski, had several cases. One man remembered a life in France, I believe it was 15th or 16th century, and he was able to speak in a Parisian dialect from that period. And there's no way he could have known that. It's just hard to argue with. So as we talk about ascension, and we hear this more and more, and I think that would be a welcome thing for all of us, because it seems like we'd be moving away from almost like a knucklehead mentality to a much higher consciousness. Maybe when we're all in the fourth dimension, maybe reincarnation and past lives are generally accepted by everyone.
The spirit world says that's exactly what's going to happen, because you will remember it's not something that you're going to be able to prove 3D, but right. In time to come, it will just be accepted because people can remember some of their past lives. It won't be something that's going to be argued about. The information I've got is that I believe when you pass over, you go through the pineal gland, and then you seem to, according to Creon and others, you go into the Akash. So you go for a 3-day period into the crystal of the earth. There's 3 different layers. And then you split off to the spirit world. So what then happens, because remember the spirit world, the quantum world is very different to our world. Say your father passed over. Your father then stays part in the ghost, if you can put it that way, stays in the Akash. And the rest of your father goes over to the spirit world and then will reincarnate again. And that's why you can communicate through mediums with your deceased. And that's why I also get ghosts, because it's like a holograph nearly. It's the person you speak to remember you from your lifetime, but they've already moved on. They can't talk about anything in the future. It's always about the current and the past. It's like a ghost in a sense.
That seems to be pretty consistent with what the lives between lives psychologists, practitioners will describe over and over again, is because part of us, like you just said, the spirit remains while that spirit, that person is still able to go and reincarnate. So we can go back and incarnate over and over again, but part of us, our spirit or our higher self, stays in a place wherever that is, and that's why they can always communicate.
How the spirit will explain, it's actually Angel Margaret via Jerry Gavin, explains we are the computers, the angels are the servers, and the creator is the mainframe computer. You've got the computers, part of it stays in the Akash, part of it then goes to the curator. And all the spirits together, whether you're alive or in the spirit world together, is the creator. That's how the spirit world explain it. And to me, it makes sense. All the computers and the angel servers all together, whether you're in the incarnation process or whether you're in the spirit world, all together. And how we connect it, and this, because I got taught to speak to the creator at the College of Psychic Studies via automatic writing. What the creator says, if you believe this, is that the string in string theory, they know that the smallest part of an atom that you cannot see is a string. They just don't know if the string touches it or not. And this is 100% proven, the string theory, but it's minute. The creator says the string and string theory is the creator particle. I don't call it the God particle found in CERN, this collider. It's the same thing. So everything are just strings. That's why all these computers are little strings all connected. So we're always all connected. What the spirit world says is, in the quantum world, we only need to wake up 0.5% of humanity. So that's 4 million people.
1/2 of 1%?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's 4 million people, roughly, of 8 billion people.
This is really great stuff. Now that we've approached how to solve the world's problems, you've given me quite a bit of homework to do. In the meantime, Karl, and I'm sure that we'll be talking again, how do our listeners find you online?
Go to lightsurfers with the S at the end, .me.
Thanks so much for joining us. You've been listening to Closer to Venus. I'm Johnny Burke. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.